Does the Bible have anything to say about recovering from post-traumatic stress disorder? Stay tuned. Well, if you want to have a bit more context concerning Psalm 116 and how we are to endure traumatic experiences, then click on the video in the description to view part 1 of this short series dealing with trauma. But today's lesson is about the aftermath of the crisis. So if you're wanting to know how to recover from post-traumatic stress disorder, then let me briefly share with you just a few lessons. Now please, this is not a video that I normally make. I usually try and stay in my lane and leave this kind of talk for the educated psychiatrist. So please understand, I'm not a licensed counselor. Please consult a licensed psychologist if you're really struggling with PTSD. But let me briefly share some practical lessons from Psalm 116 and just some other lessons. Lesson 1, recovering from PTSD is an exercise in patience. When you read Psalm 116, you read about a person who endures terrible trauma, and then he's saved. God delivers him from his crisis. But what is so interesting is that even though he has been saved, his emotions still have not fully recovered, as evidenced by verse 7. Verse 7 says, "Return, O my soul, to your rest, for the Lord has dealt bountifully with you." Verse 7 is a reminder to me that we should have patience with ourselves and with others as we recover from traumatic experiences. It takes time to restore that emotional equilibrium. One commentator said, just as a fireman might reassure a terrified child that he's just rescued from a burning building, so the psalmist here has to counsel his own racing heart. Now, if you're dealing with PTSD, have patience with yourself. It is possible to recover. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, but it is possible for you to recover. The psalmist has to remind himself, it's okay, relax. The Lord has dealt bountifully with you. God delivering him from the crisis wasn't the end. It took time for him to recover and have emotional stability. Lesson 2, it is helpful when you're recovering from PTSD to be committed to the Lord. Look at verse 8. "For you have delivered my soul from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling. I will walk before the Lord in the land of the living." So to walk before the Lord has the idea of being in God's intimate company. It's the phrase that was used of Abraham as he was called a friend of God. You see, God didn't just save this man and then he went about his merry way. God had a personal interest in saving him, to have an intimate relationship with him. So commit yourself to the ways of the Lord. That means read your Bible, pray, serve God in your local church, commit to sharing Christ with others, help other people who are facing what you have faced. Prioritize time to give effort towards the building of God's kingdom. Find your joy in the Lord. Find your joy in making this life about Him. Not about you, but about Him. Now let me give you a couple more lessons that are unrelated to this psalm. Now, I'm not a licensed counselor. If you are struggling with PTSD, please, it is probably wise to seek professional help. But psychologist Jordan Peterson gives some very helpful thoughts that I want to reiterate for people who are facing PTSD. Lesson 3, learn from the traumatic event. PTSD comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes what happened to you was completely out of your control. It wasn't your fault. Sometimes you did nothing wrong and you face PTSD, and you face it because of a dreadful experience that took place. Sometimes, though, you were naive, and that played a part in facing your trauma. For example, for someone who's been naive and victimized, your goal is to learn from that, right? Don't be naive, and you will greatly lessen your chance of being victimized. Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, used Harry Potter as an illustration. He said the way Harry Potter can withstand Voldemort is because he has a piece of him. He has a piece of him because of the trauma that he faced as a baby. He's been touched by it. You see, the way to keep the psychopaths at bay is to take that piece of them that has affected you and learn from that piece. Now, don't fully become that psychopath. That's terrible. But learn from that psychopath for your good and for the good of others. The reason you remember the past is to prepare you for the future. And your mind will not leave you alone unless you embrace preparation. It will stay with you unless you put a plan into place to make sure that the trauma doesn't happen again. So understand that what your brain wants from you is an indication that you are no longer vulnerable to the same problem. And if you can do that, generally you can find rest. You don't have to carry around this ball and chain the rest of your life. It's important to learn from and therefore overcome that trauma. Lesson 4. It's important to understand evil. So how could a person do that? You need to understand what is evil. You can't put the traumatic event in a context if you don't understand evil. Maybe you're afraid of an intimate relationship, and you're afraid of that because of one very evil relationship that has contaminated your view of things. No. You need to understand the evil person that did that and separate that person from the good people that are around you and in your life. Understand evil and understand good and discern between the two. You can have healthy relationships when you understand the difference between evil and good. Here's a next lesson. Push yourself to become stronger. This is so important. Don't hide and stay where you're at. That's the worst thing you could do. Don't hide and stay where you're protected. Now, of course, you don't want to be foolish, right? But push yourself to become stronger. Once again, Peterson uses the illustration of someone who's afraid of elevators, right? So a psychiatrist may take that person that's afraid of elevators and expose them to what they're afraid of. Expose them carefully and expose them programmatically. And Peterson, he talks about how a person who is afraid of elevators needs to be shown a picture of an elevator. Then imagine being in one. Then actually going up to an elevator. Get as close as you can, as much as you can manage. I know you're nervous, but strengthen yourself. You're learning that you can withstand the threat. And then you keep moving closer and closer, and you begin to have confidence, and you begin realizing that you're stronger than you actually think you are. Now, once again, I'm not a licensed counselor, and I don't usually give advice like this in my videos. I usually stay in my lane. But these are practical tips that have helped others and that I wanted to share. Well, thank you so much. God bless you in the way.